Hey guys, Andrea Renee here. So we recorded a special episode of What's Good Games this week where Brittany talked about Resident Evil 2, which was previously under embargo, and now she can give her hands-on impressions. So enjoy. Let's talk about some hands-on. So this is not going to be a traditional hands-on segment. For this very special episode of Hands-On, we are going to hear from one Brittany Brombacher about her time playing Resident Evil 2.
Oh, Resident Evil 2. Sorry.
For a second, I thought your screen froze, and I was really hoping that it did because that was a pretty epic face. If you have missed it, if you're listening, youtube.com/whatsgoodgames. Always good to check in with us on video every once in a while.
Oh my
That was
God.
definitely a lag situation where I thought we were about to like crash
and burn into the fiery orbit of death. Yeah, so
Speaking
this
of
is
death, Resident Evil.
Perfect. So this was a preview event that I got invited to, which was just really surreal for me because Resident Evil 2 was one of the first games that I played that was outside of my traditional norm of games. I was 9 years old. Again, do not recommend your 9-year-old playing Resident Evil. Not a very good look. But it quickly became one of my favorite franchises. So when I got the invite to go to Capcom's office in San Francisco and play the game, it was just like I was trying not to cry. And as I was playing the game, I wrote in my notebook, do not cry, over and over again. youtube.com/whatsgoodgames. I'm going to see if you can.
Don't cry.
Don't
Literally
cry.
in
Don't
her
cry.
notes. Handwritten.
Handwritten. So,
But now your camera's out of focus. You got to put your hand up there or something. Okay, I think it popped back in.
So I have a very long list of restrictions that I can't talk about, which is normal for these kind of preview events. So what I'm going to do is just talk about my main takeaways from the demo. And if you ladies have anything you want to ask me about, go ahead, because I'm a little nervous to talk about it live like this because I can't go back and cut it out just because the restrictions are very particular.
Girl, I can go back and cut it out for you if you make a mistake. Don't you worry about it. I got your back.
Thanks, baby girl. Okay. So I got to play 4 hours. I would say the first hour and a half was Leon and the rest of it was Claire. Some of this has been seen before at TGS. Andrea, it may have been the demo that you played as Claire that was that I got to see.
Did it pick up immediately after the Leon demo?
Yes.
Okay. Where you're like,
yeah,
you run into the little girl and then you're in the hallways and then you do the
my
fight.
demo, okay, I'll back up. So first of all, the Leon demo takes place in the Raccoon City Police Department garage, and you are already with Ada, and you have to leave the garage, and then you kind of start exploring the city a little bit in the sewers. The Claire demo picks up in the same garage, obviously at a different time, but you can't leave the garage because you don't have the proper key card, so you have to go through the rooms, the morgue and whatnot to find the things you need. So I will say, if you have played Resident Evil 2 before, you know what the story is mostly about. If you have not played Resident Evil 2 before and you're worried for some light spoilers, obviously be careful by listening to my voice. Anyway, I'm not going to spoil a lot of stuff. So the first takeaway I had was that this is kind of a reimagining of Resident Evil 2. Some very iconic things that happen in the original game happen way out of order with this. So it kind of reminds me of what Square's doing with Final Fantasy VII. They're taking the core elements of that game, this is what we believe is true anyway, and kind of reimagining it. So for example, in Resident Evil 2, the very first thing you do if you're playing an A scenario, which people will know what I'm talking about if they've played the game before, is you go into Kendo's gun shop and you encounter Kendo. Well, in my demo, I went inside Kendo's gun shop after already meeting Ada, and it was the first time they had been in there. And so that was pretty shocking. Not shocking, but it was unexpected because I wasn't sure how strictly they were following the storyline. There's the Alligator Sequence. It's a huge, gigantic alligator that has been morphed by the T-virus, and it's like blocks big, and it's awesome and amazing. That sequence is also in there, but it takes place, like I said, out of the typical storyline. So I think that's good. I think that's the right move because I don't think we want an exact replica of Resident Evil 2 because no matter what, we're always going to have that game as is. That game is preserved forever. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like what would this game look like in 2019? And I think that's the route they're taking with it. So that was pretty interesting for me, and I liked that. I think it's a really good move. The next, So when you're playing as Leon, I'm so excited about this. As you're playing as Leon, you walk out of the garage and you walk into Raccoon City. And in Resident Evil 3, also, I love you ladies. You're the best. Your eyes are totally glazed over right now. You're like, what the hell is this bitch
No,
talking
I didn't
about?
want to interrupt you, but I had a question for you.
Yeah. No, raise your hand. This is like school.
Okay. So, obviously, the story of Resident Evil has been out for many, many years. So, it's not like anybody's getting spoiled. But do you think that them kind of remixing the narrative and kind of placing those elements in different spots is going to fundamentally change how those character arcs are going to come together?
It could, and I'm not allowed to talk about certain things, but there are different things that happen in the demo that I played.
Like original content?
Yes.
Like brand new narrative elements have been mixed in?
There's brand new content, stuff that's never been mentioned before in any of the Resident Evil lore. Stuff that doesn't take away from the overarching characters in the story, because there is kind of like this cuckoo bananas. Well, it makes more sense in the Zelda timeline. That's not fair. There is a timeline that follows Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. You know, it all follows something. So nothing too dramatic can be changed in this Resident Evil 2 remake.
Well, they can't like kill Claire, for example.
100%, yeah. But there are new characters introduced, and you see different sides of characters, because in the first, obviously back in 1998, I think it was when the game first came out, this was a survival horror game. And while the lore of Resident Evil has always been fascinating, they didn't really deep dive into it. You know, it wasn't something that Capcom focused on. But now I feel like with this game, they're able to incorporate dialogue between Leon and Ada, where Leon's asking these questions that I feel like any normal human would ask. What the hell is going on? Who caused this? Why is this happening? Whereas in the first one, he just kind of goes with the flow and accepts it. He's like, we just got to take down this corporation, in his terrible voice acting, without ever really questioning why it happened or how it happened. So I did come across some files in the game, because that's a big part of Resident Evil, is finding the files and the memos scattered throughout the game where you read some deep dive into some lore that has information in them that you have never seen before. So it's not like they're necessarily building new arcs. It's just they're taking a deeper look at the pre-existing ones.
They're
and I think
sprinkling in a little bit of extra.
Yeah. I mean, yes, 100%. I have seen some, like I said, new things, but it wasn't an integral part of the story. That's not to say it won't be down the line. Maybe I just didn't see it for myself.
That makes sense.
Oh, I love this game so much. I could talk about it all day. Okay. Anyway, like I was saying before, as soon as you walk out of the parking garage and you're in Raccoon City, that was my first, like, holy shit, don't cry moment. Because in Resident Evil 2, the original, you don't really get to see the city outside of just kind of the intro of the game. That's mostly saved for Resident Evil 3. So in Resident Evil 2, the remake, you walk out and you just really see the scope and how big this city is. And there's billboards with the Umbrella logo all over it. And there's the gun shop, and there's destruction everywhere. And you really get the feel of like, wow, some shit did go down here. And I hope we get to spend a lot more time in the streets of Raccoon City as opposed to always being inside. But that remains to be seen. But that was really freaking amazing. I just had to stop and just take it all in. Oh my god. Okay. The next thing
I love your enthusiasm for this. I don't understand it, but that's okay. I can just appreciate that you love this thing so much, and that makes me happy. Your happiness makes me happy.
It's infectious, some might say.
Thank you.
Do you get the pun?
Oh, Seimer, I love you. I love you so much. You're like, I don't know anything about this game, but I'm here for the puns. And
I'm
that's
here for you, girl. I'm here for you.
Yep. All right. So there's obviously weapon modifications in this game. I can't talk about the specifics, but you find modifications around and you combine them with your weapons, and you can combine them with specific weapons. So if you want to increase something with your shotgun or your handgun, you can pick and choose how you want to do that, which I thought was nice.
Wait, are these like regular? Sorry, maybe you can't answer this, but like, are they regular modifications, or is this like Dead Rising shit where you make up some crazy guns?
The things I found were completely normal. Okay. Nothing like chainsaw attached to a blade that's on fire.
Yeah,
Nothing
when
like
I
that.
played, I crafted specific types of bullets that had like an acid effect on them, or like a fire effect.
So normal-ish
Yeah,
things.
your basic kind of elemental things. Now, maybe deeper in the game, it gets a little bit crazier, but I don't think it's going to go cartoonish.
No, and in the original, you do have the flame rounds and the acid rounds because those are stronger against certain kinds of enemies. But yeah, I think it's just going to be you find gunpowder, you find this, you combine them, now you have more bullets. Or you find a modification for your shotgun that does a certain thing that you want it to do.
You find special green plants that make you feel really nice.
The herbs, yes, the herbs are back and it's amazing.
Cyber, herbs in Resident Evil are a thing. I was trying to make a weed joke. It just didn't play.
No, I know. That's why I was like, no, I was picking up what you were putting down. I just was like, is there legitimately marijuana in this game?
No, it's green herbs
No,
though. You crush it up to like a fine powder.
I was lying.
And there's always been the joke of how do you ingest the herbs? That's kind of been like the question on everyone's.
Chomp on it.
No, because you cut into a powder. So do you snort it
your
body?
Maybe
like,
you
what
like
do you do?
Put it in water and make a weird smoothie.
You could absolutely. That could absolutely be it. I did come across baby mode.
Yes.
So
that's the only way I'll be able to play this game.
So this, well, you can't start with it. There's no, it's not when you start the game. It's not like easy, normal, or hard, right? So what happened, it was after I died a few times that the game asked if I wanted to turn on assist mode, which I have the notes here. Comes with aim assist. You recover a certain amount of health automatically, and enemies are a little weaker. And once you change it, you can't change it back. I'm assuming that's for trophy purposes, probably.
Sure.
Or Chivos or whatever the cool kids are calling it. So I died several times during this one segment, and I guess I'll just talk about some of this stuff because it kind of leads into it. So you do get to play as Ada in this game, which is really cool because she had a very, very limited role in the first one, and you did get to play her, but only for maybe like play as her, but maybe only for 5 or 10 minutes in the original one. So this time she has this thing called an EMF visualizer, and what she does is she scans things in the wall and it shows wires and pipes and whatnot, and you can remotely hack things. I don't think I can talk about anything more specific than that, but I did play as her for a while, and I have to say I don't think I'm a big fan of it because it's just something that feels so out of place for, this is going to sound dumb because it's totally like a fictional world, but it seems so out of place for Resident Evil 2, which is something that took place, in like the late 90s, and there's not a lot of techie tech in this game besides like, obviously there's the underground lab. So I guess it's not too crazy to think about this existing. Anyway, so how it has to work is you have to walk around and you have to scan the room around you, and you have to look for these bright yellow blips somewhere in the wall, and you have to point your machine at it and then holds down a button, and then it slowly starts to scan. And if you let go of it, you have to start it all over again. Normally not a big problem, but the zombies in this game they're very bullet spongy, which is kind of another complaint of mine.
It's terrible. You hate it.
I don't want to say I hate it.
You could just admit it,
Andrea,
Brittany.
stop baiting her. Let her enjoy the thing.
No. It was a very frustrating part of the demo because you're playing as Ada. You have maybe 5 rounds to your name, and you have to go around and scan these things. But the problem is there's always zombies coming after you. And with 5 rounds, even with 5 headshots from a handgun, you're not going to take down a zombie. They're still going to be lurching towards you.
A headshot doesn't take them down?
Not with a handgun, no.
What?
Which kind of bugs me.
It's bullshit, Steimer. Just go ahead and say it. That's what you're thinking.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. If I get a headshot on a zombie, it dead. That's how it works.
No, I completely agree. And I think they're saving the one-hit kills for the more powerful weapons like the shotgun, which I agree should not be that way. Because in the first Resident Evil, but in the original Resident Evil 2, you could only aim up, down, or straight ahead. So it's like I kind of understood that, it's not about accuracy. It's just maybe you'll take 2 shots if you're aiming up as opposed to 5 shots aiming neutral. But with this, you can actually aim. So if I shoot a zombie in the head, I would expect it to fall down. But sometimes they just keep lurching at you. So that was kind of frustrating. So I have Ada. I have like 5 rounds to my name. I'm in this room with all of these zombies coming after me, maybe 4 or 5 of them. And these aren't the dumb zombies from the OG Resident Evil 2, or if you know how to walk against the wall and like skid along it properly, you can just totally evade them. They actually like have a brain. That sounds really weird when you're talking about a zombie.
They have artificial intelligence, Brittany.
Yeah, I know, but they're real, Andrea. Let me think they're real. There's nothing artificial about these zombies, god damn it. Anyway, so they will totally just like lurch at you and grab you, and after the first bite, you're already in caution. So the health goes, I think it's fine, caution, danger, and then after danger, you're dead. And so after you maybe only have 2 to 4 chances before you're game over. Which is frustrating because there's I didn't come across any autosaves whatsoever. It was only the manual saves you make with a typewriter, although I was told that there are autosaves maybe after particularly large cutscenes. But every time I would die in this game, it would take me all the way back to my last manual save, which could have been 15, 20 minutes ago.
Let's stop and talk about that for a second before you continue. And how bullshit this is to have it in a day and age where quarters aren't being pumped into a machine. I don't need you telling me that your game is hard because you're not going to let me save. Tell me your game is hard because your AI design is advanced, because your puzzles are so tricky that I have to look up a walkthrough, or because the level design is so well done that it takes me X amount of tries to do it. Like, this artificial difficulty by locking saves to manual saves is bullshit. I'm saying it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I understand that there are some players out there that will appreciate this because this is the way it used to be.
They're wrong, Brittany. They're evil, terrible people.
They're shit.
But not only that, like, you have things to do in your life. Like, what if you need to leave?
What if you now
I have to put it in rest mode or whatever because I can't. And God forbid the power goes out and then I lose my save, which happened to me.
No, 100%.
Mode and then it blinked.
All I say is, Brittany, I see your point. Like, this is supposed to be a true survival horror experience. Resident Evil is known for this. To that, I would say, if you're going to bother doing a remake to try to appeal to not only core fans who played the game in its original iteration, but also to people like me who are like, I ain't got time for that bullshit, turn the autosave feature something you can toggle on or off. Maybe I want to play Resident Evil and experience the story that you so clearly love and are passionate about, but I, like Steimer, ain't got time for that shit.
I am 100% with you ladies. I don't like this at all. I think this should be an option because, it's not an easy game. So this is not Resident Evil from what I've played. It's not like a simple shooter, right? You have very limited health. The health you do find is randomly scattered throughout, and you have limited bullets. And
the
zombies...
headshots don't count as headshots.
Yeah, and the headshots aren't real headshots. So what are you supposed to do? The game's just like, fuck you, die.
And these zombies aren't meant to be, I don't think they're meant to be killed, put down, whatever the hell you want to call it, because there's no way you can do it with the amount of ammo you have per room. I think it's more meant to, with the strategy I found that works is you shoot them in the head like 2 or 3 times. They get stunned. I know.
And then
they're
run?
kind of stunned. They go through like a second-long animation, and then you just run by them. It's not
you
like
shot them 3 times in the head, and they were stunned, not dead.
Yeah,
that's
or
bullshit.
You shoot them so that is a complaint of mine. In assist mode, the enemies are easier, and I was able to progress farther with that turned on, but it was still like, come on, like you should be dead. So. Anyway, Ada's section. So I'm scanning all the things. I'm being chased by the zombies. I'm shooting these little bastards in the head. But I had a hard time finding the thing I'm supposed to hack and scan. And so that was really frustrating because what would happen was I would continue. I died like 3 times. And then after I died, it would boot me back to, I guess that was an autosave. But the autosave happened right after a cutscene. So the autosave happened right after a cutscene, but there was still maybe like a 1.5 minute long thing I had to watch every single time I started over.
Oh, you couldn't skip it?
And I couldn't skip it. So hopefully that's something that is fixed going forward.
That's also like an easy fix too, right? Like if the game sees that you've watched the cutscene once, then add a skip feature in. Like I think that there's an argument to be made that we're not going to have in this moment about skippable cutscenes, right? But if you've already watched it once, the game knows you watched it. Like let you skip it the second time.
100%. So that was kind of irritating. Oh yeah, here's my notes right here.
The game knows that you're dying a lot and is offering you an assist mode that is not in the menu. So like if you already know, you're already tracking deaths.
Yeah.
The game knows.
Here's my notes. The zombies took like 5 handgun shots to the head and still walked around. Too spongy IMO. So that was my official note on that.
Too spongy,
Maybe their brains are made of sponge.
Maybe they absolutely could be. Just some other things that I've noted. The lip syncing out of the cutscenes is pretty bad. In the cutscenes, it's really good. Outside of the cutscenes, it was just one of those things that I couldn't help but notice. When you see it done so well in God of War, I mean, I would say like Red Dead 2 was really good too, but not as good as God of War, but way leagues above what Resident Evil 2 has. Not a huge thing, not a game-breaking thing, but just something that I couldn't help but notice. The banter between Leon and Ada is much. Oh yeah, okay. So this is what I was talking about earlier. How Leon is asking these questions to Ada, like what's happening. And I think this is really good for new players like Steimer. I know you're absolutely going to play this game and you're going to love every minute of it. But the lore of Resident Evil is so crazy that you're going to have absolutely no idea what's happening. So I'm glad they incorporated that quality of life into it. I have, death scenes are effing gnarly. After one attack, your health goes into caution, 2 more is in danger, and then basically you die very easily. So I already talked about that. Not a lot of checkpoints, talked about that. Ada's scan segments are kind of annoying. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm going to like this part. It just doesn't feel Resident Evil-y to me. I want to play Resident Evil with a handgun or mini guns, mini rifles, mini shotguns. Particularly, I would prefer infinite ammo if I could, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know.
Super baby ass mode.
That's how I played my first Resident Evil 2 game. Game Shark for the win. And let's see. Oh, yeah. So something else I really like that they're bringing back is the fact that you find an item, and this is just for the Resident Evil nerds out there. You pick up an item, and you're like, oh, cool, I have this really cool box thing. It's like a box, and there's an item in it. And you need that item that's in that box to go finish a quest. You go to finish that quest, and you try to use the box, and it's like, nah, dog, that's not going to work. So you have to open up your menu, and then you have to rotate the item in your inventory and find the correct spot to search, and then and only then will the box open, and then your item pops out of it. So I know you're probably thinking, what's so cool about that? But it's just a really cool throwback to the old Resident Evil games where you'd pick up a briefcase, for example, and you'd open it up in your inventory and look. It's kind of like a little mini puzzle. I also found a picture frame, and I rotated it around, and then I found a key item within that picture frame. So it's just something my fellow Resident Evil nerds where you're at will appreciate.
I remember finding a couple items like that in my playthrough as well, where you examine it and you get a hint. Several other games have taken that and used that. One game that comes to mind is Uncharted, how you can look at certain items. And while you don't get items from looking at the artifacts, you can get some key narrative pieces of information that can be helpful, which I think is neat. And it's a cool little tidbit to put in.
In Tomb Raider, right, when you can, it like vibrates and it's like, oh, you found a sweet spot. And she's like, oh, no, an artifact, it's great. Lara Croft is now some weird Muppet English accent.
Oh, no, an artifact.
Oh, no. The last main thing I have written down here is the Tyrant. So in Resident Evil 2, you have Scenario A and Scenario B for Leon and Claire. And it's kind of confusing to explain to people. But for those of you listening that have played it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Whoever you played as in Scenario B has Mr. X or a Tyrant T00 following you around for the entirety of the game, because the idea is that the character in Scenario A is busy dealing with Birkin. Okay. So the Tyrant follows you around the entirety of this game, and he follows you around in Leon's campaign and in Claire's campaign, which is kind of goes off of the usual lore of Resident Evil where it's only in Scenario B. So it's kind of interesting to see them mashing the scenarios together. And I'll be really interested to see if they haven't already, Capcom put out a statement, is if this is the true canon of the series. Again, this is I need a Resident Evil fan with me. Okay, finally, the Tyrant.
No, I don't know these names.
No, I think it would be helpful for us if you explain like why that's significant.
Do you have an hour?
No. Can you give me the elevator pitch?
Too long, didn't read version.
Okay, so scenarios in Resident Evil 2 work like this. You have Leon and Claire. You have Scenario A, which you can play as Scenario A Leon, Scenario A as Claire. I think the canon as of right now is Scenario A Claire, Scenario B Leon. So the idea is Claire is the one who you play from the very beginning. You go into Kento's gun shop, you discover XYZ, and then Scenario B will be Leon because Scenario A is Claire, and then in B, as Leon, you see what Leon was doing during that time, that Claire was doing her thing.
Okay.
But you can only play that after you've played Scenario A. And depending on how you mix and match the two, different things will happen.
So you have a choice. There's player agency in how you mix them?
No. You can only do Scenario A as Claire or Leon, and then no matter what, that second Scenario B has to be the other character. Does that make sense?
Like multiple playthroughs in order to see both scenes?
100%. Okay. And so what's significant about this is in Resident Evil games down the line, there are certain things like Sherry makes an appearance again, Ada makes an appearance again, and depending on how you played Resident Evil 2, certain things don't add up with those timelines. Like Resident Evil 6, for example, Sherry's in that, or in Resident Evil 4 when Ada's in that. So it's going to be interesting to see if this is like the full canon version of Resident Evil 2, because some very, very different things happen depending on how you play. So that's why it's interesting.
And nothing that you've seen so far in your playthrough indicates that this is going to remain true to the narrative path of the original, that are you thinking or feeling that it might change?
That what might change?
That the idea of how you play the game and the ability to see specific narrative events based on the choice of who you play certain scenarios as.
I think what they're going to do is mash certain things from A into 1. They're obviously going to have to leave some things out. For example, in a certain way you play Resident Evil 2, if you're worried about spoilers, too bad, or just pause it, I'm sorry, or mute me, whatever how you want to do. Sherry becomes infected with the virus.
Brittany, that game, I'm sorry, Resident Evil 2 came out in what year?
1998.
Yeah, if you're worried about spoilers, kind of, you got to have some bigger problems in your life.
But I feel like people are going to be playing this game for the first time, and so I just want to throw that out there. So
no, that's okay.
Sherry isn't...
Touche. Maybe I'm being a little surly right now. That's fair. If you want to go in clean, hopefully you're not still listening. Hopefully you tuned out of this segment a long time ago. But if for some reason you're still hanging in there and you're like, dang it, I don't want to know nothing else about the story of Resident Evil 2, now's a good time to skip ahead like 20 minutes.
I'll be done in like 5, I promise. So in Resident Evil 2, in Claire A, Sherry gets infected with the G virus by her dad, who is now... an abomination because he's been infected by his own G virus. She gets infected with this thing, and
Does
then
he
U.S. Claire gives her the
infect
virus.
her? He intentionally infects her, yeah?
Yes, totally
Okay.
intentionally did that. Yep.
Thanks,
He's
Dad.
trying to reproduce. He's totally gone, and he's not
Ew,
trying to.
that
No,
sounds
I know
worse.
it sounds really bad, but that's exactly what he's trying to do. It sounds weird. It's not that weird in the game, I promise.
The virus.
Anyway,
He's
so
trying to
she-
replicate the virus is what she meant to say.
Yes.
I can't
Not trying to
you're
reproduce with his daughter.
That sounds so bad. It sounded good in my head, but it came out my mouth hole. It was very wrong. Apologies in advance. So you give Sherry a virus, which gives her regenerative abilities, which is something that's mentioned and touched upon in later Resident Evil. However, if you play as Leon A, Sherry never gets infected, and so that whole plot line, like just didn't
It's
happen.
just negated.
Right. And then there's questions about Leon A, Leon B, Ada's role, and if she's alive or dead. So certain things like that. So very different things happen. So I think what they're going to do is look at what happened in the later Resident Evil games and turn Resident Evil 2 Remake into like the canon version of the ultimate version of lore and history, and all that is good.
Okay.
Makes
Wait,
sense.
so you think they're not going to do the switchy things?
I don't know. I should have asked this. They might do the switchy things, but even if they do it, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to do it the way they did back in that day, where it's two completely different, almost completely different storylines in one game. I think it's going to be more of a, hey, you play as Leon, now let's play as Claire. I think that's how it's going to work. Or if not, it'll be something similar. I should have gotten clarification on that, but I was too in my zone to even give two shits.
I mean,
All
you
knew
were
was
trying to not cry, so I understand.
I was trying not to cry. So finally, going back to the Tyrant, he follows you around, Mr. X. He follows you around the entire game. He's kind of always stalking you, and I don't think he can ever be killed. I think you can stun him, and that's about it. I was talking to the team there, and they said they hadn't seen anyone kill him, and I don't believe he can be killed until probably later on in the game. So the problem is he's always following you around. And even when you're trying to do a puzzle, he will come and just like smack a bitch. He's like, I don't care if you're trying to do a puzzle. I'm gonna eat you alive and punch you in the face.
He has a goal in life.
He does, and I want to be supportive of the goals, even of those of my enemies, unless they're real assholes and their goals are nefarious. But I'm just saying, like, he was a dick, and I was trying to push these bookcases. I said bush cases.
Okay.
And that got real weird. Anyway, it can get got weird. Anyway, so the problem is it can get overwhelming. You have this big old monster in a trench coat following you around. You have all these zombies from previous rooms that don't ever die. You have lickers chasing you. You have Dobermans trying to eat your face. And there's no sense of safety or security. And I think that there should be more than just the safe rooms.
But isn't it like supposed to be?
I
don't know. I've never
no,
played
no,
the
you're
game.
not wrong. But the problem is when you're being chased by this big old asshole in a trench coat and you need to leave the room because
Brittany, I'm coming after you
Exactly.
in my trench coat.
You're giving me
Oh,
flashbacks.
look out for me.
Yes. Fuck you, sir. I don't want your shit. I don't want what you're selling. Is I found myself like running around trying to get away from this guy, but then there's all these zombies in these other rooms trying to eat my face. And it was just overwhelming. God damn it, Simon, you gave me flashbacks. Now I'm traumatized.
Drink your whiskey, it'll be okay.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
long story short, I could talk about this forever. When Jason picked me up from the airport, I talked about it the whole way home, and that was like an hour and a half ride home. What a trooper. He just sat there and nodded as he drove in the traffic.
He is such a trooper. He's great.
He is pretty great. Yeah, I'm very, very excited for this. Like I said, there's some awesome improvements they're making, and I feel like they're taking this already great game and just breathing this breath of 2019 fresh air into it and turning it into something that I think could be a next revolutionary step forward for the survival horror franchise.
Wait,
This
why do you think
genre in
that?
general.
I'm gonna make you defend that declaration.
Yeah, so Resident Evil 2 did that way back in the day, right, in 1998 with its mechanics and it was
Yeah, no
it was the
argument
whole-
there. You don't
right.
have to make
So
that
with
argument.
So the thing with Resident Evil 2 is it has such a following already that I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this, and the expectations are very high. And I don't think Capcom is going to let people down just from what I've played anyway, besides like the stupid little things like the bullet sponges and whatnot. And I think if there's a game that can get people into this genre, it's going to be Resident Evil 2. I know, Andrea, you're excited for it, and like that makes me happy. Well, excited might be a little bit much.
Yeah.
Is she excited?
Yeah, excited is not the correct word. I am interested, which is a big
Anticipatory.
step up from where I was before I played it. So
But this game is true. I feel true survival horror. You don't have a ton of ammo everywhere. Health is limited, and it has the atmosphere of, it doesn't have the fixed camera angles anymore, but what it does have is you can hear the moaning of the zombies off screen, or you can hear the voices. It has these fascinating characters and this fascinating lore, and it's just expanded upon it. And I think it's a story that almost anyone would find interesting, because it's not like it just throws you in there. It's like, okay, have fun. I feel like it takes its time. It knows when to overwhelm you, and it knows when to take a few beats and just let you relax and become connected to these characters in this setting.
let your guard down, only to scare you again.
Exactly, that's what they do. Things jump out the windows and break mirrors all the time. It's terrible.
Except with this man in the trench coat, you're saying.
Yeah, Mr. X, he's an asshole.
So with the resurgence of the horror genre that we have seen over the last, let's say, 2 to 4 years, do you think that what Capcom is doing with this remake is enough to draw in audiences who are used to a more action-oriented experience, or who are used to a more adventure-focused experience?
I think both. I feel like this game has both to it. I mean, it has its slow moments where you're just kind of walking through a corridor and the music's building in your ear and you're super duper tense. But then you have those moments where you have, you're in a room full of zombies, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to shoot this guy in the knee, and I'm going to run around him, then I'm going to use my knife to stab this. Now, the zombies are the slower enemies, but you have the lickers, you have the Dobermans. Those are they're called lickers, like literally. They're like these fleshy, muscular, four-legged humans with brains, visible brains, and long-ass
Yeah, no, they're
tongues.
terrifying. They like to hang out on ceilings and
Whoa.
shit.
They're called clickers because they click when
I
they walk
don't
around with
like
their
it.
claws.
I mean, clickers are, to me, from The Last of Us, but okay.
So yeah, I think this game is going to be appealing to both. I think there's something here for both people, for both parties, and from what I've seen, like I said, I stand by that. I think this is going to bring it has a lot of eyeballs on it. It's going to bring a lot of people in, and I think people are going to be very, very surprised that this is what survival horror can really be. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last super fantastic survival horror masterpiece that was put out there. Maybe PT, and that was a teaser, right? What that trailer did was just incredible in the sense of dread it built, and I feel like the music and everything else with this game. Now, granted, I will say, if this wasn't Resident Evil 2, would everyone be all about it? Probably not if this was a brand new game. But because it is Resident Evil 2, like I said, it does have that following. It does have that attention. It does have that spotlight. But what's important here is I think they're really going to deliver. And they're really going to convert a lot of people
that aren't familiar with the Umbrella Corporation storyline, having not played the original Resident Evil, are going to be able to just jump into this and understand everything that's happening?
I think so. And that's because of the dialogue that I saw between the characters. You know, before it wasn't anything like that. It was just Umbrella Corporation is here. They are bad. Let's save people. And it makes no sense. And the acting was terrible and the dialogue was awful, but people weren't playing that game for the acting. But this time, like I said, they breathed that 2018 air into it where they know how to tell a story. They know how to do it. And they know the right things to talk about to get new people interested in the series.
Okay.
And I think if you don't know anything that's happening, you're going to be able to follow along and you'll have a different experience than me, who knows exactly what's happening, but I'm playing it for the new tidbits of information. So I think it's appealing to both.
Okay. Well, listen, this has been a lot of information, and I hope that everybody out there has enjoyed. We, of course, will follow up with Brittany in January after the game launches. Thanks for checking it out, everybody. Look for the full episode of What's Good Games publishing this Thursday, December 6th, ahead of the Game Awards, where we pick our winners. You don't want to miss this.